Piercing facts is not a clever trick of the mind. It is the restoration of your sovereignty. Piercing facts means walking through the brick wall called reality with the power of imagination. Piercing facts is to hear life's orchestra playing a new melody while the world insists on the same tired refrain. Scripture calls this the flood, a world drowning in headlines, reports, verdicts, diagnoses, bank statements. Facts, cold, repeated, proven. And yet, as Neville revealed, the flood remains a flood until imagination pierces it. Picture this: the city still asleep, the faint sound of classical music flowing from a radio. You open the Bible not as a relic of the past, but as a living map of the now. You read of Isaac, blind with age, calling for Esau, of Rebekah clothing Jacob with skins, of the trembling father whispering, "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's." And suddenly you understand. Reason, the voice, still says no, but feeling, the hands, has already said yes. And it is feeling that receives the blessing. The law of assumption, does not consult statistics. It consults the state you occupy. I have blessed him, and he shall be blessed, says consciousness, once the inner touch confers reality on the invisible. Neville himself lived this law. March 1943, enlisted, imprisoned in the fact called army. He lay down, closed his eyes, and occupied the state of being in his New York apartment. He touched, in imagination, the bed, the table, the walls. I gave everything the tones of reality, he said. And within 9 days, the facts bent. The discharge came, not as an accident, as obedience to law. The law of thinking from the end, not merely thinking of it. That is the difference between daydreaming and living the end. The world calls it coincidence. Consciousness calls it harvest.
But what about the facts? Asked the mind. Here the ark with 3 decks becomes a lantern. The lower deck, facts. The second, psychological meaning. The third, spiritual transformation. Life does not ask you to deny the ground floor. It asks you to climb the staircase. To live the end is that ascent, from the newspaper into meaning, from meaning into decree. When you feel the street under the feet of the future, the present pavement must yield. The gospel shifts the law from external command to psychological truth. He who looks with lust has already committed the act in his heart. This is not condemnation. It is instruction in causation. If an imaginal act can condemn, an imaginal act can also create. Feeling is the seal. Isaac trusted the hands because the touch confers reality. And Neville, awakened between worlds, learned it by holding a pile in a dream until the dream itself hardened into substance. The secret is touch, inner touch. Have you noticed how some months repeat the same rhythm? The shortage, the delay, the silence. This is a transmitted state, a habit of feeling that recurs in cycles. The world calls it season. Consciousness calls it programming. And programming can be edited. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, enter what Neville called SATS, state akin to sleep. Let the body grow heavy, the mind soften, and there, between waking and oblivion, change the address of your heart. Do not describe the journey, arrive. What does it smell like there? What weight presses into your hand? What sound lingers? feel it. Some insist, "I'll believe it when I see it." Neville whispers back, "You'll see it because you believed." Faith here is not pretending, it is feeding the feeling until it becomes fact. Like the sister in San Francisco who, though she knew none of the case's details, embraced her brother's freedom inwardly and soon after heard the doorbell ring. The world calls it chance. The law calls it inevitable. It is not about denying pain. It is about refusing to remain in the basement. The ground floor documents. The upper floor decides. The newspaper brags of just the facts, but facts are effects masquerading as causes. We unmask them with one question. From where am I thinking right now? If from the end, the blessing is sealed. If only of the end, I still stand outside, peering through the window at the banquet I could already be tasting. So tonight, change the question. Stop asking, will it happen, and begin with this. What does it feel like knowing it already has? The mind will panic, asking how, when. Smile gently. The how is woven into the state itself. The when bends to the now you consecrate in feeling. And when you open your eyes tomorrow to the same ceiling, something will already have shifted. Not the furniture, you. And when you change, the furniture of the world obeys. If Jacob's inner touch won the blessing, what happens when your hands of imagination touch tonight, the tomorrow you have chosen? A flood of facts, that is the world's daily offering. Every pocket carries a newspaper now. Glowing screens whispering headlines and verdicts. They call it just the facts. They call it reality. But Neville calls it the flood. And no flood is overcome by building higher dams. The only ark that floats is built in imagination, with 3 levels: fact, psyche, spirit. The question is never whether the waters rise, but whether you will rise above them. When Jesus said, "I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it," he was speaking not of rituals and diets, but of psychological law. Fulfillment is not debate. Fulfillment is assumption. To fulfill is to say amen inwardly before the outer world hears it. To fulfill is to step into the end, not as spectator, but as resident. And once you dwell there, life fulfills itself. Look again at Neville's friend, the one who refused to pierce the facts. He sat at lectures gripping the arms of his chair, feet pressing the floor, as though afraid to be carried away by the story of imagination. He clung to solid reality. And what did it buy him? 3 years in confinement, until the external facts themselves shifted and released him. He received his freedom on schedule with the masses. Neville received his freedom 9 days after assuming it. Both were discharged, one by default, the other by design. That is the choice. You can wait for facts, or you can govern them. The prison you see is not always built of stone. Sometimes it is a verdict, a habit, a cycle of lack. Sometimes it is the "this always happens to me" story, repeated until it becomes law in your own mouth. But every prison has the same key: to think from, not of. Neville was in the army, but he thought from his New York apartment. A woman feared for her brother, but she thought from his embrace at the doorway. An engineer in New York longed for responsibility and greater pay, and he thought from the desk he had chosen in imagination. And within weeks, the company called his name. This is the razor edge of practice, to think from. To walk into the scene like Jacob into Isaac's tent, clothed in the hair of the end. The voice may quiver,
It isn't true, but the hands already declare it is. And consciousness blesses the hands. So tonight, when the world throws its flood of facts before your eyes, reports, balances, test results, arguments, do not deny them, but do not worship them. Walk past them. Find the second level of the ark, then climb higher. And there, in the upper room of imagination, decide. Feel the tones of reality that belong only to the fulfilled wish. If it were so, how would your hand fall upon the table? How would your voice carry itself? What weight would lift off your chest? Stay there. The world below may roar, but it cannot drown you when you live upstairs. Neville revealed a great fallacy that still binds millions. The fallacy of constructive imagination with deferred occupancy. How many dreamers build palaces in mind, yet refuse to walk through the door? They admire, they describe, but they never enter. They think of their desire, not from it. And so the palace remains a sketch on the wall. The difference between fantasy and fulfillment is a single step: occupancy. You do not need to know how the rent will be paid or how the job will arrive. Occupancy is its own law. The how is woven inside the state itself. The bridge of incidents comes alive only after you enter. The mind will ask, "But what if I fail?" And you must smile and recognize the trick. Failure itself is a state, a hotel room you can check into and out of. Poverty is a state. Wealth is a state. Loneliness is a state. Love is a state. Each waits like a city on the map, unchanged, but you are the traveler. The traveler is God in motion, your own wonderful human imagination. You do not destroy the states you leave. They remain for others to visit. But you are not chained to any of them. You pass through, and you decide where to stay. And here lies the tenderness of the law. Always apply it in love. When someone asks your help, do not inquire into the reasons for their condition. Do not investigate the crime, the debt, the diagnosis. Ask only, "What do you want now?" And then, in the quiet, imagine lovingly on their behalf. Lift them into the state they seek. See them relieved. Hear them grateful. Feel them free. Do this, and you will know what Jesus meant when he said to the accused woman, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." He did not excuse the fact. He changed the state. To sin, in Neville's definition, is simply to know what to do and not do it, to stay in the basement when the staircase is waiting. And so the question returns to you tonight. What do you want now? Not tomorrow, not after the facts approve, but now. Choose the state. Occupy it. Pierce the fact. Feel the tones of reality as though the blessing has already been spoken, because it has. Every time you feel the wish fulfilled, the Father whispers again, "I have blessed you, and blessed you are." If the flood of facts rages louder each day, what happens when you step into the ark of imagination and shut the door behind you? Neville once dreamed he was standing in the ocean, clutching a great wooden pile. He knew it was a dream. The sea shimmered unreal. The beams swayed like mist. But he said to himself, "If I can hold this pile with all the force of my being, perhaps it will prove solid." And so he gripped it, refusing to let go. He commanded himself, "Awake!" And when he awoke, he was still clutching the pile, but now it was no longer dream stuff. It was solid, damp, heavy in his hands. He was standing in a world as tangible as this one, yet born from the dream he had dared to pierce. This is the secret of feeling. Isaac, blind, could not trust the voice. He reached out his hand and said, "Come near, that I may feel you, my son." He trusted the touch. The blessing passed not through words, but through the tactile certainty of contact. And so it is with creation. Your inner touch seals the decree. To feel the wish fulfilled is to grasp the pile in the dream until it hardens into reality. Neville discovered worlds within worlds. In a half-sleep in Beverly Hills, he found himself gazing into a room not his own. He let himself drift into it, then back to his bed. Into it, then back again. At last he said, "I will explore, regardless of consequence." And when he entered, the room closed upon him. He was there, solid, able to open doors, to walk corridors, to encounter people who looked at him with suspicion as if he were a ghost. Yet he knew the origin was a dream. The world was no less real for that. It was simply another frequency, another station on the dial of imagination.
Think of it, worlds existing side by side, layered like music on the air. Turn the dial a fraction, and a new symphony bursts forth, not because the previous vanished, but because you tuned elsewhere. So it is with states. Poverty hums on one station, wealth on another. Loneliness plays its tune, love sings its chorus. The flood of facts is merely one broadcast. The law of assumption is the hand on the dial. Turn it. Tune deliberately. Choose your station. And do not wait to be carried. Walk in as Neville did and touch. Touch the walls of your chosen state. Touch the hand of the beloved. Touch the desk of the job. Touch the doorknob of the home. Feel it real. The sense of touch is the golden seal. Sight can deceive, sound can be argued, but touch persuades the inner judge. This is why Jesus moved the commandments inward. You have heard it said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say, whoever looks with lust has already committed the act in his heart. What was he teaching? That the inner act is the real act, that imagination is the womb of fact, that every seed planted in feeling must sprout. To restrain an impulse outwardly, but indulge it inwardly, is to commit the act in the soil where it matters most. The law is not moral scolding, it is psychological instruction. If the imaginal act has power to condemn, it has power also to create heaven. So tonight, observe your imaginal acts. Notice what you touch in silence. Are you caressing worry? Are you rehearsing defeat? Or are you stroking the fur of the lamb, the reality of your chosen blessing? Every inner act will become outer fact. The only question is which seed you water. And here lies the marvel. You need not fight facts. You need not explain them away. You need not argue. You need only pierce them. Imagine lovingly, feel deeply, occupy fully, and then rest. As surely as the tree bursts from the seed, your fact will burst from your feeling. And if you doubt, remember. The woman in San Francisco who embraced her brother in imagination felt his arms before they returned in the flesh. The engineer who sat at a desk in imagination received his appointment in the outer world. Neville himself, who touched his New York apartment in imagination, received his discharge. The pattern repeats endlessly because it is law. And what of fear? Fear too is a state, a prison cell with its own bed and meal. If you find yourself in it, do not curse yourself. Simply walk out. Choose another room. Fear is not prophecy, it is tenancy. Change the lease. And how? By touch, by feeling, by daring to let the inner hand grasp what the outer eye denies. All this is given freely,
without price, because imagination is God Himself in you. Man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us, Neville said. This is the highest revelation. There is no God out there deciding your fate. The only God is your imagination, waiting for you to claim your inheritance. When you occupy the end, you are obeying God. When you bless with inner touch, you are God blessing Himself. This is the mystery Paul called Christ in you, the hope of glory. This is the secret hidden from ages, but revealed in the end. The eternal body of man is imagination, and that is God Himself. To pierce the facts is not blasphemy, it is worship. To occupy the fulfilled wish is not arrogance, it is obedience. So tonight, before you sleep, choose your station. Grasp the pile. Enter the room. Touch the world you desire until it trembles with reality. And then, let the body drift. The law will carry you, and the flood will part. If worlds upon worlds await the turn of your inner dial, which station will you tune to tonight? And which symphony will rise to meet you?
We began with the flood of facts, cold, relentless, daily. And we end with a higher truth. Facts are not masters, they are servants. They wait like clay for the hands of imagination to press them into form. They roar as though eternal, but they dissolve the moment you pierce them with feeling. Neville called this the greatest secret of all. You are not the creature of circumstance. Circumstances are the creatures of you. And who is this you? Not the mask, not the biography, not the resume. It is your own wonderful human imagination. That is God Himself, wearing your form, breathing your breath. What does this mean? That every state you enter contains its own path. Poverty contains ways to perpetuate itself. Wealth contains roads to multiply itself. Loneliness has 1,000 proofs. Love has 1,000 more. Whichever room you enter, the furniture will arrange to match it. Do not ask how. The how is already planted in the soil of the state. Your only task is occupancy. And so, the woman who wanted her brother free did not fight the prison. She kissed him in imagination, and he came home. The engineer did not demand interviews. He sat at a desk in imagination, and the company summoned him. Neville did not beg the army. He felt the floorboards of New York, and within days he walked them. The pattern is precise, reliable, universal. This is why Jesus said, "When you pray, believe you have received, and it shall be yours." Prayer is not pleading. Prayer is thanksgiving in advance. Prayer is the voice of Jacob wrapped in the hands of Esau. Prayer is the touch that blesses. So tonight, let your prayer be an act of daring. Do not look at the flood. Step into the ark. Walk to the upper deck. Occupy the end. Feel it real. Let your inner hands grasp the invisible until it trembles with solidity. Then rest. Tomorrow, or next week, or next month, the facts will shift. Not because they were persuaded, but because they had no choice. They obeyed the law. And if you fear the waiting, remember this: you are not waiting on life. Life is waiting on you. The moment you assume the end, the machinery begins. The bridges of incident start to assemble. The actors take their places. The curtain is drawn. And the play that seemed impossible begins its performance. But here is the highest promise. Beyond all creation of health, wealth, and love, there is the awakening.
One day you will see the Son, and He will call you Father. And in that moment you will know what Neville knew, that you are not merely a user of imagination, but its source. You are God, discovering Himself through the dream of man. Until that day, use the law with love. Free the prisoner, comfort the sick, provide the job, heal the wound. Do not condemn, but ask always, what do you want now? And then assume it lovingly for yourself, for your brother, for your sister. This is the truest worship, not rituals, but assumption in love. Now imagine this. You are standing before two doors. One says facts, the other says fulfillment. Through the first lies endless corridors of reports, statistics, and arguments. Through the second lies a simple room, a table, a window, a voice saying, "It is done." One is noise, the other is peace. One is bondage, the other is blessing. Which door will you open tonight? The choice is yours, and it always has been. For the kingdom of heaven is within. The ark is within. The staircase is within. The blessing is within. The flood may rage, but you are safe in the upper deck. You have already touched the promise. You have already received the blessing. So close your eyes tonight and walk through the door of fulfillment. Touch the invisible until it becomes inevitable. Feel the wish fulfilled until the flood recedes. And when the world rearranges itself, smile softly, for you will know it was never chance. It was law, obeyed through love. If this truth has stirred something in you, if you felt the warmth of possibility in your chest, then walk further with us. Become a member of this channel for early access to upcoming revelations and deeper teachings. Together we pierce the facts, rise above the flood, and walk the earth as creators. And when someone asks, "How did you do it?" smile as Neville smiled and say, "I pierced the facts." And the world, obedient, will answer in the only way it knows how, with new facts.